American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
So now I'm obsessed with time. Come on, tell me about the time. Had it all in my hand tonight. Had the time of my life. When the words all come down like blues on Tuesdays come down. Throw it all away.
Welcome to another episode of American Timelines. I'm Amy, and that's Joe.
We are humans, American humans.
Yes, and
We have thoughts and feelings and flaws. We're not perfect.
no,
Okay?
definitely not. And we are going to talk about 1955 today.
Yeah, we're still in 1955. We're turning the corner. We're getting towards the fall.
We're going to talk about,
September and October of 1955.
that's correct, September and October.
This will be, I think, episode 185.
Wow.
You believe that?
Wow.
You believe that?
Wow.
And we're picking up some listeners, picking up some steam.
Are we?
Yeah, we are.
Nice.
And I think some of that is thanks to Magic Mind, which is
Oh, nice.
that beverage
Yeah.
that I have enjoyed.
Yeah.
It's got all these nootropics. It's got this stuff that, helps me curb my caffeine intake, so I'm not so jittery. It's natural. It tastes pretty good. It's a little green shake. Takes a second to drink. And those folks found me, and they said, hey,
Yeah.
we think you'll like this, and I do like it. It's delicious, and you can use my discount code, ATL. Go to the following website.
Insert website here.
It's our website here at www.magicmind.co/ATL. And the discount code is ATL for American Timelines. And you can get
How much?
up to 40% off.
Nice.
It's crazy. It's a crazy deal. So you got to get it. It's a subscription thing, and you'll like it, I think. So you guys should check it out.
All right.
But thanks to them, we've kind of boosted our, they're sponsoring us. So I'm advertising the podcast more. We're getting more listeners. So
All right.
it's a whole cycle. So thanks, everybody.
It's a
Thanks
menstrual
for listening.
cycle.
Yep. It's a menstrual cycle.
Speaking of menstrual cycles,
September of 1955.
no, I'm not. I'm concerned about the state of our 2022.
Right. Yeah. Amy is upset. I'm upset. We're all upset about the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, it's not going to stop with that either. So that's the other piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
But anyway, 1955.
Yeah, so we do
was
this to
before Roe v.
escape all
Wade.
the horrible awfulness of society. So let's, we can be sad, it's okay, and we are going to rise up, and there's something will come to a head. But let's jump into the timeline, because people aren't here to listen to us be political, probably.
Probably not.
And did you know that in September of 1955,
Mm-hmm.
In Italy, there was a Roman shoemaker who designed something called defense shoes, complete with spurs on their toes and heels to kick away sex pests, to protect young girls from the street.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they had, and you can look at them online. They got a little sharp spike on the end, on the toe,
Yeah,
and on the heel,
and
and on
you
the
could just kick a guy right in the
kick somebody
nads.
right in the nuts, and just rip open their scrotum.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And now it's time for What Would a 9-Year-Old Boy Say? This, ladies and gentlemen, is my 9-year-old nephew, Calhoun Jack. Let's hear what he says.
So that's probably the reason why girls kick people all the time. That's where it probably originated from.
It might be.
But that I think is a good problem-solving skill. But was it really necessary? I don't really think so.
You don't think they needed those shoes?
No.
You don't see anybody with spikes on their heels and toes anymore, do you?
Yeah.
It was pretty bad back then, though. I mean, catcalling,
Yeah.
you know, even when I was growing up, catcalling was bad in the 90s.
In the early 60s. when you
Right.
grew up.
No. In the
Yeah,
late
in
80s
the
or
80s and 90s. Yeah.
90s and all that, it was pretty bad. But talking about 1955, it was like, that was,
Yeah, police at the time actually
Expected.
referred to the men who harassed young women as parrots because the girls said that they kept repeating the same silly phrase all the time.
yep.
Like they'd say the
Hey,
same
baby.
thing. Hey, baby, and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
ooga, ooga, all that stuff. I mean, the
Yeah.
cartoons were doing that. Like their eyes would
Right.
pop out and their tongue would fall out.
Right.
Anyway, reviews of the shoe suggested that such a girl who would purchase these defense shoes would be publicly displaying her vanity, that her own good looks would encourage pursuit, and that the wise boy would give the spur-shod girl a wide berth because of the unmistakable evidence of spurs on the heart and probably the tongue.
Well, you know, in Africa,
Yeah.
there's there's some kind of a insert that they invented that has teeth around it, and women stick it
Inside
up.
their vaginas?
Yes, so that and
Sweet.
it prevents it deters rape. Yeah.
Yeah.
So imagine that. Imagine a world where that has to happen.
Gives new meaning to the term, bitch, you got teeth in your vag.
Yep. I don't know what.
Is that a thing
I'm
people
not
say?
sure that's a thing anybody says, but
Well, September 2nd, 1955 was a Friday,
okay.
and according to the BBC, under the guidance of Dr. Humphrey Osmond, TV presenter Christopher Mayhew ingested 400 milligrams of mescaline hydrochloride
Whoa.
and allowed himself to be filmed as part of a panorama special for BBC and it was never broadcast.
It was probably never broadcast because he had a great time and
They
nothing
probably
terrible
loved it.
happened.
Yeah. Well, this guy was a British member of Parliament, and he did it because the drug was legal at the time, and the experiment was supervised as part of a wider public debate about psychedelic drugs
Yeah.
following the publication of The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley.
Mm.
But yeah, mescaline was put on a banned list of drugs in the UK because of fears of its potential impact on mental health. But yeah, I didn't really see why they stopped. I didn't really look too deep into it, but never aired. And
All right.
I did see a cool thing at a place called Caveat in Manhattan that does cool nerdy programming. They did a thing where some performers, some comedians, I think, did a bunch of LSD or something. They filmed themselves, and they kind of showed it as a presentation at the club, kind of one time.
You'd have to. That would have to be so heavily edited.
Yeah.
Because I mean, people are a mess when
Oh,
they're
yeah, it was very-
when they're
it was
tripping on
edited.
LSD.
It had edited down.
They just sit there on the
20 minutes or
couch
so.
for 4 hours and stare at the wall.
Yeah, but there was like a professor or somebody talking about, kind
Yeah.
of narrating what was going on at the time.
Oh,
too,
yeah.
So. And then on Saturday, September 3rd, 1955, Little Richard records a hit song, Tutti Frutti, in New Orleans.
Tutti frutti, I'm Rudy.
And it wasn't released until October, but this is when he recorded it.
Okay.
Let's see what Calhoun Jack thinks about Tutti Frutti, shall we? What do you think about that?
I think if it was made in the 1950s, right?
Yep,
I think that was a good song. It probably cheered lots of people who were down at that time. And it probably made people rise up and overcome that time.
Oh, cool. All right, that's good. So, Tutti Frutti, is an Italian phrase meaning all fruits. Did you know that?
Oh no, I did not.
So, this was written by Little Richard and Dorothy Labostri. And Dorothy Labostri really just kind of cleaned up Little Richard's lyrics because that's not the original lyrics, apparently. According to The Life and Times of Little Richard, The Quasar of Rock by Charles White in 1942, the original lyrics, in which Tutti Frutti referred to a homosexual man,
That's what I wondered.
was Tutti Frutti, good booty.
Oh.
If it don't fit, don't force it. You can grease it, make it easy.
No way.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. And it was replaced with Tutti Frutti, ah, Rudy, Tutti Frutti, ah, Rudy. And
Oh my God.
there was I found a documentary by BBC on YouTube where Little Richard's drummer Charles Connor confirmed that it was tutti frutti good booty. If it's tight, it's all right. If it's greasy, it makes it easy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was crazy. I had no idea of that. But so they look. Sorry, a lot of people call it that song just a wop babaloo bop a wop bam boom because that's what Little Richard's rendition of a drum pattern that he had imagined. And this whole that in itself became not only a model for Little Richard songs, but also a model for rock and roll itself. And this song introduced several of rock's most characteristic musical features, including its loud volume, powerful vocal style, and distinctive beat and rhythm.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah. That's cool.
Very good.
Tutti Frutti changed the world. And then on Tuesday, September 6, 1955, Hurricane Gladys makes landfall 140 miles south of Brownsville as a Category 1 hurricane with winds of 85 miles an hour. Vacationers evacuate Padre Island in preparation for the storm, and rainfall peaks at 17 inches in Flower Bluff. In Oso Bay, a storm surge is reported to have reached 4.5 feet in height. And I guess kind of affected Texas, too.
Okay.
September 10th, 1955 was a Saturday. Long-running U.S. TV series Gunsmoke is broadcast for the first time on the CBS TV network.
God, that was on forever.
Marshal Matt Dillon is in charge of Dodge City, a town in the Wild West where people often have no respect for the law. He deals on a daily basis with the problems associated with frontier life, cattle rustling, gunfights, brawls, standover tactics, and land fraud. Such situations call for sound judgment and brave actions, of which Marshal Dillon has plenty. I think they focus a lot on the land fraud, because I remember being bored as hell whenever my dad would watch that.
Yeah.
It seems so boring. But yeah, you're right. It was on forever, and it's actually second place and longest running show with the most episodes and all that, I think. Do you want to guess what is first?
Of what?
Show that
'cause
has
it's
the most seasons and most episodes?
MASH?
Nope. It's something that's still on.
Simpsons.
Yep.
Yes, Simpsons has been on for
It's been on since 87.
My
That's crazy.
God, yeah.
And that brings us to September 12th, 1955, when an American stage and screen Emmy Award-winning actor was born.
Amy hates birthdays. Amy hates birthdays.
In Rochelle, New York.
Okay.
This guy described his father as not a buddy, but a boob, as an abusive, rageful man, and his mother as an alcoholic.
Jeez.
And it said that their marriage was tumultuous. And he didn't grow up in New Hart. He grew up in New Rochelle, New York.
Oh, is
Went
it
to Edgemont High School in Scarsdale, New York.
Bob Newhart?
Colors are blue and white, home of the Panthers. No, this guy's unfortunately dead. But his dad was not a buddy, but a boob.
I don't know why
And he
you're
was
saying
born
that.
in New Hart, but he was born in New Rochelle.
I don't know why you're saying
Notable
that.
alumni at his high school include Ben Schwartz and Paul Heyman. We're talking about Peter Scolari of New Hart and Bosom Buddies fame.
How would I get that?
Rest in peace, Peter Scolari.
From what
Who
you
else,
were saying.
Who else was on New Hart and Bosom Buddies?
How am I supposed to know you're talking about bosom buddies from Boob?
Boob Buddy.
Oh my god.
He wasn't a buddy. He was a boob. And,
What?
I mean, who else had such a tumultuous childhood other than Peter Scolari?
Well, I don't know about that.
Everyone knows about Peter Scolari's childhood. But a little known fact about Peter Scolari, I bet you didn't know this. He was an avid juggler. Remember at the beginning of Bosom Buddies when he's juggling
Yeah.
like fruit? He actually showcased his talents on television, including a performance during the 1982 Circus of the Stars.
Oh God, remember those?
I loved those.
There was Circus of the Stars, and then there was Battle of the Network Stars.
Yes, kids, these days you have no idea
Yeah.
what you missed out on. Like, all the sitcom stars that were on your favorite shows
first of all,
would die.
there was only 4 channels, so
That's true.
everybody in America was watching the same shows.
Yeah, we all
and
knew the same
everybody
characters.
knew all the characters and all the shows, and it was like the only thing to talk about. So
Now you can name 14 shows that you watch that nobody
else
of.
has even heard of.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's crazy.
it is.
It's
Anyway.
crazy how much there is. Also, that same day that Peter Scolari was born, we have another birthday. Hit the music!
Amy hates birthdays. Amy hates birthdays.
American actress and MTV VJ was born in Springfield, Massachusetts. She was born Nina Kinkkiner in Springfield, Massachusetts. Her father was in government service and also taught Sunday school. And she grew up on the west side of Cleveland, Ohio, attended Rocky River High School. She was in Playboy magazine. Her school colors were maroon and white.
I don't know who you're talking about.
They're the Pirates. Notable alumni of her school include Pat McCormick, the fat guy with the mustache from Smokey and the Bandit. Remember Smokey and the Bandit? They had that
That
fat
is
guy.
not
and
a
the little guy?
notable alumni. That is not a notable alumni.
That's
I'm
very notable.
Sorry.
Anyway, she graduated in 1970. It's Nina Blackwood. Nina Blackwood, everybody.
I don't know who that is.
The blonde MTV VJ?
I have no idea.
You don't know the MTV VJs?
No.
Can you name any of them besides Nina Blackwood?
I can name like the guy and
Who? What's the guy?
and that one chick, but I can't remember. what
JJ
their-
Jackson?
No, that's not who I'm thinking of. I don't remember their names.
Alan Hunter? Mark Goodman?
Mark Goodman. Remember him?
Martha Quinn?
Martha Quinn. I didn't have cable when they were on. I wasn't a rich kid.
I
so
wasn't
I'm
either.
Sorry.
You had more money than I did, bro.
No, because I didn't have cable. I didn't know any. So how did you know all these VJs if you didn't have any cable?
We did have cable. We
See,
just weren't
I
rich.
didn't have cable.
We had nothing else. We didn't eat because cable was more important. When I was in high school, my history teacher gave us a quiz, and one of the bonuses on the quiz was name the 5 original MTV VJs.
And you got them.
I got it good. That's the only reason I passed high school.
My God.
And Nina Blackwood was one of them. Anyway, she was in Playboy. I didn't know she was in Playboy. Now I got to look up that Playboy. She was in the August 1978 Playboy pictorial, The Girls in the Office, and she was a brunette, but she's known as a blonde on TV. So if you're into nudity, everybody, men and women, boys and girls, children, adults, everyone, appreciate the naked body of ladies.
All right, let's move on here.
Whoa. Anyway, a little bit more about Nina Blackwood. I'm just kidding.
No.
Okay, September 4th, 1955, Herb Score, somebody named Herb Score,
Yeah.
sets the rookie record of 235 strikeouts in baseball.
That's a bad thing.
No, he's the pitcher.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
okay.
sorry. But Herb Score, a little bit, I've never heard of Herb Score, so I was just checking around to see is he anybody
Yeah.
notable. And this poor guy, this American pitcher, when he was 3 years old, he was run over by a truck and then later had rheumatic fever.
Jesus.
Poor guy.
But then he became a
But as a
famous baseball
teenager, he
player?
started playing basketball and baseball
Yeah.
at Holy Name of Mary School until he moved with his family to Lake Worth, Florida. In 1952, he threw 6 no-hitters for the Lake Worth Community High School baseball team. And then they knew he'd be great. So Herb Score, that's his name. Herb Score, everybody. September 19th, 1955 was a Monday. Hurricane Hilda kills about 200 people in Mexico. But this is American timelines, not North American timelines.
Right.
Because that same day, on September 19th, in Sumner, Mississippi, USA, an all-white jury acquits both defendants in a trial for the murder of black teenager Emmett Till,
That's right.
who we just did an extensive episode on. After a 67-minute deliberation, one juror says, if we hadn't stopped to drink pop, it wouldn't have taken that long. J.W. Milam later admits to shooting Till and says he and his fellow defendant Roy Bryant didn't think they had done anything wrong.
No, they never regretted it.
No, they didn't. They think it was okay. And I did connect a little bit late to planning our last episode with a poet who has a book available on Amazon,
Amazon.
Amazon.com. I don't know if I mentioned this in the other episode, but I was kind of upset that the top 3 books, when you look up Emmett Till and look for books on Amazon, the top 3 are written by a white man. So this one is not written by a white man. So I got a hold of a poet who wrote A Wreath for Emmett Till. It's a book of sonnets about Emmett Till, and I think everybody should purchase it. It's available on Amazon. I'll put a link to the book in our show description,
Yeah.
so everybody can buy it from her. And I met her. I had a brief Zoom call with her. She was very pleasant, very nice, and she appreciated that we did this. I'm going to include a little clip right now of her reading some of her poetry. Her name is Marilyn Nelson.
One night, 5 black men died on the same tree with toeless feet in this land of the free. This country we love has a Janus face. One mouth speaks with forked tongue, the other reads the Constitution. My country, 'tis of both thy nightmare history and thy grand dream. Thy centuries of good and evil deeds I sing. Thy fruited plain, thy undergrowth of mandrake, which flowers white as moonbeams. Indian pipe, bloodroot, white as moonbeams their flowers. Picked, one blackens and one bleeds a thick red sap. Indian pipe, a weed that thrives on rot, is held in disesteem, though it does have its use in nature's scheme, unlike the rose. The bloodroot poppy needs no explanation here. Its red sap pleads the case for its inclusion in the theme of a wreath for the memory of Emmett Till. Though the white poppy means forgetfulness, who could forget when red sap on a wreath recalls the brown boy 5 white monsters killed? Forgetting would call for consciencelessness, like the full moon which smiled calmly on his death.
There you go. That was Marilyn Nelson.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, wasn't that good? A Wreath for Emmett Till. It's good. September 23rd, 1955, when James Dean first met Sir Alec Guinness, he asked him to take a look at his brand new Porsche Spider.
Yeah.
Guinness told James Dean, if you get in that car, you'll be found dead in it by this time next week.
And he was.
And that encounter took place on September 23rd, 1955, and 7 days before Dean's death. Allegedly. I don't know if that's true. I didn't.
He probably didn't say the next week part. He
probably
just
didn't,
said,
yeah.
oh, this is
He
a
probably
death
just
trap.
said- yeah, something like that, yeah.
Because it was a death trap of a car. You know, those little, they were like tin cans.
Yeah. But Alec Guinness is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
True.
And then on September 24th, 1955, I have a cool thing happen on a Saturday. This is from, I want to read you a little excerpt from an article on OZ.com, OZY. This is from an article called President Eisenhower's $14 billion Heart Attack by Sean Braswell on OZ.com. It was a crisp Saturday afternoon in September 1955. The U.S. economy was booming. There were no major crises in the world, and the President of the United States, enjoying an approval rating of 79%, was on vacation. Then, on the 8th hole of the Cherry Hills Country Golf Club course, just outside Denver, Dwight D. Eisenhower, 64, started complaining of indigestion, which he attributed to the hamburger with Bermuda onions he had wolfed down between his morning and afternoon games. But just 24 hours later, the American people were informed that their war hero president was in an oxygen tent at Fitzsimmons Army Hospital being treated by one of the best cardiologists in the country. And another 24 hours later, on September 26th, the bull market that had seen stocks triple on Wall Street in the previous 7 years went into a tailspin. The Dow Jones plummeted over 6% and lost $14 billion in value by the end of what would prove to be the worst single day for markets since the start of World War II. Eisenhower's heart attack, however, was just one in a series of major illnesses the seemingly invincible leader would experience during his presidency. So Dr. Howard Snyder, his personal physician, had misdiagnosed the symptoms as indigestion and failed to call in the help that was urgently needed. And apparently, Dr. Howard Snyder later falsified his own records to cover his blunder and to protect Eisenhower's need to portray he was healthy enough to do his job.
Yeah, Eisenhower was a good president.
Yeah. So the heart attack required 6 weeks hospitalization, during which time Nixon and some others assumed administrative duties and provided communication with the president. He was treated by Dr. Paul Dudley White, a cardiologist with a national reputation, who regularly informed the press of the president's progress. Instead of eliminating him as a candidate for a second term as president, though, his physician recommended a second term as essential to his recovery.
Yeah.
So I don't know why, but so there you go.
All right.
And then on September 25th, 1955, lady, have you ever heard of a gal named Emma Rowena Gatewood?
I have not.
She was born Emma Rowena Caldwell, but she's known as Grandma Gatewood. She was born October 25th, 1887, to a family of 15 children
My God.
in
Oof.
Guyan Township in Gallia County, Ohio, which is right by the West Virginia border.
Mm-hmm.
Her father, Hugh Caldwell, was a farmer who turned to a life of drinking and gambling after his leg was amputated in the Civil War.
Yikes.
Right? That's how old this
Yeah.
person is. Okay. The child rearing of the family was then left to her mother, Evelyn Caldwell. Emma and her siblings slept 4 to a bed in their log cabin. 4 people in a bed. Imagine that. So
Man.
her formal education ended with the 8th grade, but she enjoyed reading encyclopedias and the Greek classics and taught herself about wildlife and woodland plants that could be used as medicines and food. So she knew a little something about that.
Mhm.
And she also enjoyed writing poetry. And on May 15th, 1907, at the age of 19, she married a 27-year-old Perry Clayton Gatewood, P.C. Gatewood, who was a primary school teacher and later a tobacco farmer. And they had 11 children of their own. Almost immediately, though, her husband set her to work burning tobacco beds and building fences and mixing cement, in addition to her expected housework duties and raising all those kids. And P.C. had a mean streak. Within months of the wedding, he started to beat his wife.
Oh, no.
A vicious pattern that continued for the duration of their marriage. In 1924, though, he was convicted of manslaughter after killing a man during an argument. He was ordered to pay restitution to the widow of the victim, but his prison sentence was suspended because of his 9 children and his farm to take care of.
Oh.
Emma recalled being beaten nearly to death on several occasions by her husband. When her husband became violent, she would often run into the woods where she found peace and solitude. So the woods was like her happy place.
Mm-hmm.
In 1939, after yet another violent fight, P.C. arranged to have his wife arrested and jailed. But seeing her with broken teeth and a cracked rib, the town mayor took her in and found her a job. And then she filed for divorce in September of 1940. And in February of 1941, she testified against that bastard in a hearing that resulted in the divorce being granted,
Oh, good.
giving her custody of the 3 children still at home and with alimony to be paid by P.C. This was at a time when divorce was difficult. It didn't
Yeah.
happen much. And also at this time, he had repeatedly threatened to have her committed to an insane asylum.
That's
as
what people
to
did back then.
Maintain control over. Yeah, I guess that's common. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awful. So in the early 50s, while reading a discarded copy of the August 1949 edition of National Geographic magazine, Granny Gatewood found an article about the Appalachian Trail. The description and photographs captivated her and made it sound like that's something she could do. It seemed, based on these books and pictures, an easy thing to hike the whole thing.
Yeah.
So she set out in July of 1954 at the age of 66 years old
Oh, my
to
God.
hike south from Mount Katahdin in Maine. I don't know if that's how you say it. But after a few days, she got lost and broke her glasses and ran out of food. The rangers,
Jesus.
the rangers who found her convinced her to return home, but she decided not to tell anybody about her failure. The following year, at the age of 67, Gatewood told her grown children that she was going for a walk, and they didn't even ask where or how long. They knew she was resilient and could take care of herself. This time, she started earlier in the year and walked north from Mount Oglethorpe in Georgia, beginning on May 3rd, 1955, and ending 146 days later.
Oh, my God.
Walking for 146 days. Can you imagine
Oh.
that? And 2,168 miles later,
Oh
on
my
September
God.
25th,
Holy
at Mount
shit.
Katahdin. At the top of Baxter Peak, she signed the register
So
saying
she walked from Georgia to where?
Maine.
No way.
Yeah.
Jesus.
In 1955.
Oh, my
And she was 67
God.
years old.
It's insane.
At the top of Baxter Peak, at the end, she signed the register, sang the first verse of the song America the Beautiful, and spoke out loud, "I did it. I said I'd do it, and I've done it." So there was a National Geographic magazine article. Oh, because that National Geographic magazine article that she read, that I was talking about earlier,
Yeah.
had given her the impression of easy walks and clean cabins at the end of each day's expedition, she took little in the way of outdoor gear. She didn't take a tent
Oh
or a
my
sleeping
God.
bag. She just took a shower curtain to keep the rain off, and she wore canvas Keds shoes on her misshapen feet and carried a small notebook, some clothes, and food in a homemade denim bag slung over one shoulder. When she couldn't find shelter, she slept on piles of leaves. On cold nights, she heated large flat stones to use as a warm bed. When she ran out of food, she ate berries and other edible forest plants she recognized.
Oh my God.
So all she had was a notebook. Like, think
Jeez.
about all the stuff we need now. Like, I
Yeah,
can't
but
go
she
anywhere
survived
without
that.
like a phone and a TV. You know,
Of course.
I need Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Local newspapers began picking up on her story in late June. You know, she started in May and ended in September. In late June, and beginning in Virginia with an article in the Roanoke Times.
Mm-hmm.
Then the AP did a national profile of her while she was in Maryland, leading to an article in Sports Illustrated when she reached Connecticut. This publicity made her a celebrity even before the hike was over. She often recognized and received trail magic, that they call assistance from strangers, in the form of friends, food, and places to sleep. After the hike, Sports Illustrated ran a follow-up article describing her experiences on the trail, and she was quoted as saying that based on the National Geographic article's rosy description, she thought it'd be a nice lark. It wasn't. She continued, "This is no trail. This is a nightmare.
Yeah.
For some fool reason, they always lead you right up over the biggest rock to the top of the biggest mountain they could find." Newspapers across the U.S., included the Baltimore Sun, had articles about the jovial little grandmother who conquered the Appalachian Trail. In addition, she was invited as a featured guest on the news and talk television program The Today Show with Dave Garroway, and she won $200 on the televised quiz show Welcome Travelers.
All right.
And checking back in with Calhoun Jack, let's see what he has to say about Granny Gatewood.
I think that's impressive, and that definitely, spiked up women's rights a lot.
So after a long, difficult life as a farm wife, mother of 11 children, and survivor of domestic violence, she became famous as the first solo female thru hiker of the 2,168-mile Appalachian Trail in 1955 at the age of 67. How
Pretty
about that?
sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the following day that she finished that, America's sweethearts, showbiz couple Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds got married,
Oh, doomed.
and they would divorce within 4 years.
Yep.
When
Because he cheated on her
cheated.
with Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah, so you know all the things.
Yeah, I know all the dirt.
You know the dirt. Yep. But they did have a child named Princess Leia.
Mm-hmm. That's
so
right.
we have Obi-Wan Kenobi and Princess Leia in this episode.
True.
This is a nerd podcast.
You're trying to make it one.
I did. I went to Heroes Con
That's why you have that
this
pocket
past
protector
weekend.
on.
Yeah, I went to Heroes Con. I went to my first nerd convention
All
as
right.
part of the Nerd School podcast, our sister podcast. Anyway, and that brings us to September 30th, 1955, when the celebrity car death is James Dean.
Man.
So I don't know if you knew that he had an auto racing hobby.
Yeah.
So in 1954, he became interested in developing a career in motorsport. And he purchased various vehicles to, race and stuff. And then he started racing, actually, before this.
Mm-hmm.
Just before filming Beyond Rebel Without a Cause, he competed in his first professional event at the Palm Springs Road Races, held in Palm Springs, California, in March of 1955. And he achieved first place in the novice class and second place at the main event.
Not too
So,
shabby.
He was racing for a while, and then some of the movie companies said, "Hey, no, you can't." They barred him from all racing during the production of a movie called Giant.
Yep.
Did you see that movie?
That's the one with Elizabeth Taylor. I
oh, it
think.
is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so once he finished the movie shooting it, he started racing again, and so he was on his way actually to a race when this crash happened. So at the intersection of State Route 46 and State Route 41, which is renamed James Dean Memorial Junction, but the accident actually happened 100 feet to the south of that due to road realignment. he was planning on going back to racing. He traded in one of his speedsters for a new, more powerful and faster 1955 Porsche 550 Spider, and entered the upcoming Salinas Road Race event scheduled for October 1st and 2nd, 1955.
Mm-hmm.
And accompanying him on his way to the track, it was like a 5-hour drive from L.A. On September 30th was stunt coordinator Bill Hickman, Collier's photographer Sanford Roth.
Colliers are those magazines we have above the couch.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you have pictures of those covers, right?
Yep.
And Rolf Wuthrich, the German mechanic from the Porsche factory who maintained Dean's Spider, which he called Little Bastard. Anyway, on the way there, at 3:30 p.m., Dean was ticketed for speeding, as was Hickman, who was following behind another car. As the group was driving westbound on U.S. Route 466, currently State Route 46, near Sholom, California.
Schlong.
Sholom.
I think
Sholom.
Schlong.
Schlong.
Schlong, California.
I don't think that's what
Big
it is.
hairy Schlong, California.
I don't think that's what it is. But at approximately 5:45 p.m., a 1950 Ford Tudor, driven by 23-year-old Cal Poly student Donald Turnipseed, was traveling east. Turnipseed made a left turn on the Highway 41 headed north toward Fresno, ahead of the oncoming Porsche. Dean, unable to stop in time, slammed into the passenger side of the Ford, resulting in Dean's car bouncing across the pavement onto the side of the highway. Dean's passenger, Wuthrich, was thrown from the Porsche, while Dean was trapped in the car and sustained numerous fatal injuries, including a broken neck. Turnipseed exited his damaged vehicle with minor injuries.
And he probably had a seatbelt on or something, and the
I don't
other
know if
two
they even
didn't.
had seatbelts then.
Yeah, that's true.
Did they? I mean,
I don't know. I
I
don't know when the law wasn't until much later, but
Well, the accident was witnessed by a number of passersby who stopped to help. Dean's biographer, George Perry, wrote that a woman with nursing experience attended to Dean and detected a weak pulse, but he also contrarily wrote that death appeared to have been instantaneous, so we're not sure.
okay.
Jury's out.
Yeah.
Dean was pronounced dead on arrival shortly after he arrived by ambulance at the Paso Robles War Memorial Hospital at 6:20 p.m. Though initially slow to reach newspapers in eastern United States, details of Dean's death rapidly spread via radio and television. By October 2nd, his death had received significant coverage from domestic and foreign media outlets.
Like, it's just such a shock, I bet. I mean,
I
because he
bet.
was so
James Dean,
young.
super actor, yeah.
Yeah.
He was super popular, right?
Mm-hmm.
His funeral was held on October 8th, 1955 at the Fairmount Friends Church in Fairmount, Indiana. The coffin remained closed to conceal his severe injuries. An estimated 600 mourners were in attendance, while another 2,400 fans gathered outside of the building during the procession. Turnipseed was innocent of any criminal
God, what
acts.
kind of name is Turnipseed?
Turnipseed, Donald Turnipseed. You know, maybe he
kinda like
changed
it.
his name to Donald Trump to hide
It sounds like a Disney fairy or something would be named.
Yep. Anyway, that guy was a pretty successful guy in his own right, I guess. October 1st, 1955, Jackie Gleason's sitcom The Honeymooners debuts on CBS,
Nice.
replacing his variety series.
All right.
Production ends
Neat.
after just 39 episodes.
Oh, really? It was that short?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Isn't that weird? Then October 3rd, Captain Kangaroo premieres on CBS.
Oh, I loved that show when I was a kid.
Good morning, Captain. Yeah, Mr. Green
Remember
Jeans.
Mr. Green Jeans and the puppets that he had, the moose?
That moose. I wanted that moose.
And there was
Octo-
always the ping pong balls would always fall from the ceiling.
all over everything.
Yep.
October 3rd, that same day, Mickey Mouse Club premiered, the same time as Captain Kangaroo.
Oh.
Captain Kangaroo, I do feel like by the 70s, like he was like lame, you
You
know.
think?
Yeah. I mean, and then now if you look back and watch him, like it seems a little creepy. Like
Oh, stop.
the way his hair cut, like
That doesn't make him creepy. That was the hairstyle. That was the style of the time.
yeah, but for him, like he shouldn't have been talking to children. He just seems.
Oh my God.
And then October 4th, it was the Baseball World Series. The Brooklyn Dodgers win their first World Series with a 2-zip victory against arch rival New York Yankees at Yankee Stadium in Game 7. The MVP was Brooklyn pitcher Johnny Padres.
All right.
You want more World
No
Series
more of
information?
that. Plenty of that.
October 15th, 1955, Buddy Holly opens for Bill Haley and his Comets in Lubbock, Texas, and impresses Nashville scout Eddie Crandall, leading to a recording contract with a misspelling that creates Buddy Holly. He was Buddy Holley originally.
Oh,
and they
they
misspelled
misspelled
it.
it.
Yeah, so that's how, and then he kept it. October 18th, track and field names Jesse Owens all-time track athlete. And then October 27th, Rebel Without a Cause, directed by Nicholas Ray, starring James Dean and Natalie Wood, is released
After he died.
posthumously.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was released after he died
Yeah.
until I figured out the timeline of it at all. But yeah, so there you go. And that brings us to October 30th, 1955, when a businessman and horse breeder, William Woodward Jr., has
Yes.
a little trouble,
Yes.
right?
I'm going to tell the story of Anne and Billy Woodward.
Okay.
And
Anne Cromwell
this is
and Billy Woodward. Huh?
yet another. Excuse me. This is yet another episode of A Crime to Remember. So,
Oh, so from now, our podcast has just basically become
me
recaps
telling you an
of
episode of A Crime to
a
Remember.
crime to remember.
So-
that show, you give props to that show? You like that show?
I do. It's a very good show.
Okay.
I would say they do a good job. There is reenactments on it, which it's not my favorite way to do it, but since
Yeah.
it's a period show,
Oh, it's about menstrual cycles?
no,
or-
it's all crimes from like
That was
this
a joke.
time
That was a dumb
period.
joke. Yeah. Okay. What channel can you see that on? Is it
It's
ID,
ID,
channel?
yeah, Investigation Discovery.
Okay.
I see it on YouTube TV. I think it is.
Well, YouTube TV has all the channel. I mean, it's a cable
Oh.
network now. So, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how things work.
Yeah, you don't understand.
No, I
anything,
don't
yeah.
get it.
So YouTube TV is a subscription we have. It's like a cable service, kind
All
of,
right.
but it's
So
on
that
the internet. Yeah.
that was a dumb thing to say. All
No,
right.
it's okay. You don't know. Why
All
would
right.
you know? Who cares?
So the beginning of the show, a fabulous estate on the Gold Coast of Long Island,
Okay.
1955.
Okay.
The biggest scandal ever in New York society. Just hours after dining with the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, Anne Woodward came home and shot her husband Billy in the face.
Oh, so she's a big.
Accidentally, or so she said.
Really?
Now, do you
Wow.
know anything about this story?
I don't know
Okay.
anything except that he's a horse breeder.
So,
But so she's famous.
yeah.
These are
They
famous
were
people?
socialites.
Okay.
So this is Oyster Bay, New York, is where this takes place
Okay.
specifically. And
Oyster Bay, New York.
so police arrive. They find Mrs. Woodward cradling a badly injured Mr. Woodward in the hallway of their mansion.
Oh.
She's on the floor on top of her husband, like holding him.
Okay.
The police
And,
officer
like,
who
upset
was
and crying and
yeah,
stuff? Okay.
and she got blood all over her, and the
Oof.
police officer's not sure what to do. And then he looks over and he sees all these pills on her nightstand. So that's kind of like, what's going
What
on?
is
And the
happening
place
there?
was a shambles, and
Yeah.
she's just sobbing hysterically. So she,
Did you say the place was a shambles or
Yeah.
in shambles?
I said it was a shambles.
Okay. Just checking.
Okay. She claimed that she heard a burglar or an intruder get into the house and shot, thinking she was shooting the intruder.
Oh, so she was home alone and he walked in, type of thing.
Well, I'll get to it.
Okay, you'll
we'll
get
get
to it. Okay.
Okay, so the police, she's
The
still kind of.
5-0. They like to be
That's
called
all
the
they can
5-0.
really get from her
Yeah.
at this point. So they search the premises. The dog's barking. There's bullet fragments on the wall. Anne and Billy had separate bedrooms
Okay.
on either side of an 18-foot hallway.
And that's probably normal for rich people in the 50s?
Yeah, yeah. In front of Anne's door was a custom-made shotgun laying there, and the body of Billy Woodward lay in front of his bedroom, riddled with buckshot.
Oof.
So, according to the caretaker, a little after 2 a.m., they heard shots fired. There were some things disturbed in the kitchen. There was broken dishes and things.
Okay.
And although the couple had plenty of guns, only the one lying on the floor had been fired. So Anne Woodward finally calms down enough to be questioned. She said she shot her husband accidentally in the dark hallway when she thought there was an intruder.
Okay.
Now, this part, it starts to kind of ping pong back and forth between this current situation that's going on and then back in time to, like, now we're going to go back and to who Anne Woodward is a little bit.
Okay.
So she came from a poor beginning. She came from a poor Kansas town. She moved 11 times as a child.
Ooh, that's tough on you.
Yeah. Her mother ended up running a taxi cab company in the back of this movie theater.
Huh.
And when Anne was little, they called her Angie, which is short for Angeline.
Okay.
Her mother said she always wanted to better herself. As she got older, she became more beautiful. She wanted to make it big, just like her idol Joan Crawford.
Oh.
So she gets a job at a very exclusive department store modeling and selling hats. There was a buyer who came through and told her to look him up if she ever came to New York. and that was her way out.
Yeah.
So in New York City in the 1940s, the elite started spending more time out and about in cafe society, and it made it easier for regular folks to be able to meet them.
Okay.
And Anne would go out and she would get all dolled up and look very elegant. So she decided to change her name to Anne Eaton, and that's what she went by.
That was her name.
Yeah. So she,
like her stage name type of thing.
yeah, she loved flash and glamour. She wanted to become one of the beautiful people.
Okay.
So Anne met Billy at Fifi's Club Monte Carlo. And
Oh, that sounds fancy.
yeah, back then, the Woodwards were the height of the social pyramid. They made a lot of money selling cotton to the Southern troops during the Civil War. So they made their money off the back of slave labor.
Yep.
They then bought an interest in Hanover Bank, making a fortune. Before Anne met Billy, she caught the attention of his dad, Mr. Woodward Sr.
Okay.
She was very attractive and very warm, and all the men wanted to sit by her. So he invited her to see his horses. She went, so she goes to his place
Yep.
to see his horses.
To see the old man, the dad.
The dad, yeah.
the guy's
But
dad.
she's very coy about him, and it's unclear what all happened when she went to see his horses.
Yeah.
But Woodward Sr. was discreet. And then when she met Billy at the club, he had no idea that she'd been involved with his dad. Billy didn't.
Ooh, weird.
So Billy was a sexually inexperienced youth.
Okay.
Anne would dance with Billy and say suggestive things about the body language and the movement, and she would flirt with him. It was very sexual, very fast.
Okay.
She was more than ready to handle Billy's desires, and she had no idea his death would be by her hand, too. Or did she?
Or did she?
Yep. So she was forthright about the fact that she had fired the deadly shot. Now we're back in the...
We're back in the current
back in
times.
current
And they are married, right?
They're married, yeah.
Okay.
There was no question about that. The question was, did she murder her husband? So the 1950s, in some ways, were similar to today. When wealthy people commit a crime, everyone pays attention.
Yeah.
So when Anne Woodward shot her husband Billy, the police were very nervous. The police,
Because they knew all eyes would be on this.
right, and they up there were mostly caretakers. They didn't really know how to handle crime because
Yeah.
it was a real rich area. All the Woodward's people, like all the lawyers and everything, were quick to arrive. They had such influence and power that they could afford the top lawyers in New York who did everything they could to block the press from knowing anything.
Okay.
So the chief of police, the district attorney, and all these sort of brass who never go to crime scenes are there.
Yeah.
Anne was sedated and given a chance to compose herself.
Okay.
So now we're going to go back in time again. How did Angeline Cromwell become someone's wife as opposed to a plaything? It had been over Elsie Woodward's practically dead body. Elsie Woodward, who is Billy's mom,
Oh, Billy's mom.
was a
Let's see.
very powerful socialite in New York.
Okay.
When she met Anne, she hated her right away.
Uh-oh.
And she felt she was beneath her class. Everything was what did they keep saying? They kept saying SIYC or something. Stay in your class. Stay in your class, dear. They kept
Really?
saying.
They said that to her?
They kept saying that to
And she was like perceived as lower class? or
Lower
just
class.
By the mom?
By this mom. So marriage was the only way that someone like Anne could make it in that world. But the Woodwards were horrified and warned Billy not to marry a woman like Anne.
Yeah.
Elsie wanted more for Billy, but they were very much in love. Billy loved how different Anne was from the world he came from, and she thought all her dreams had come true. A girl from rural Kansas
Rural.
comes to New York and marries one of the most eligible bachelors there. So now, back to the night of the murder. They end up taking Anne out of the house on a stretcher, and she puts like a cloth over her face because the press is already there.
Yeah.
They transported to Doctors Hospital in New York. And an ordinary woman who was not a socialite would have been cuffed and drug out of there,
Yeah.
probably. But if you look back, it seems trouble for them started well before the shooting.
Okay.
Anne was sensitive, and she didn't feel like she was accepted by some of the family.
Of course.
And she perhaps tried too hard. So she was playing a role as Billy's wife.
Okay.
But the harder she worked at fitting in, the less time she had for Billy. He had been imagining a never-ending honeymoon with his extremely desirable wife who had taken him places he'd never imagined going in the sexually repressed world.
Hell yeah.
Once Anne was married, though, she was more focused on becoming more respectable than being a playmate.
Isn't that always how it is?
She starts to conform. She starts to want the approval of his mother and sisters over the approval of Billy.
That poor thing.
And there was even a part where Truman Capote,
Yeah.
who at this time was writing Breakfast at Tiffany's,
Yeah.
he was invited to every party, and whenever he saw Anne Woodward, he saw her as, in his words, a phony, and he despised
Really?
that about people.
He didn't like fakes.
So just a few years later, the Woodwards had 2 children, 2 boys, the heir and a spare, they called it. And a certain point, at a certain point, Billy looked at Anne and thought, "Who are we? How did we ever get together? We come from 2 completely different worlds."
Yeah.
These 2 differences would matter, let alone become a problem, may not have occurred to Billy early on.
We all know how you got together. She was super hot.
Yeah, but there was one person who believed that Anne should have never been allowed into their world, Elsie.
The mom.
Yeah. So Elsie finds out about Billy being shot the next morning,
Okay.
and she's just totally grief-stricken. She decided Anne had to be guilty of murder.
Yeah. Well, she already didn't like her.
Right. So Anne may have been whisked away from all the drama that night, but that didn't stop the Oyster Bay police from asking questions about her strange story. It was time to figure out what really happened. Anne's story could have been true. Maybe there was a prowler around. There were rumors and a few sightings. There was a young man who had been arrested once prowling the neighborhood, breaking into people's houses and just stealing food and cutlery and jewelry. The house staff showed police how someone would get into the house if they wanted to. The caretaker also told police about what Billy found on the grounds just the day before. Open cans of food were strewn across the ground. They decided that the prowler had been in the pool cabana and had been letting himself in the kitchen.
Oh, that was just a day prior.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they think there's an intruder that's been coming around.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, well, they know they have,
Yeah.
supposedly.
Right?
So this could be an intruder.
So then later that night, they went to a nearby house for dinner that was being held in honor of the Duchess of Windsor, who was Anne's good friend.
Oh, wow. Fancy.
The police interviewed a lot of the people who had been at the dinner party, asking them if the couple seemed normal.
Yeah. Were they on edge? Were they arguing? Was there any kind of animosity? Was somebody drunk?
Several people mentioned that Anne told them about the prowler, that it was all she talked about.
Yeah. So she was already on edge and scared.
The partygoers gave some credence to Anne's story about a prowler, but there was a lot they'd left out about the sordid business that had become the Woodwards' marriage. Billy had started having affairs.
Uh-oh.
Marlena Torlinia, for
Marlena Tortellini.
instance, she was very good looking, half Italian princess, half Connecticut wasp.
Oh, from the Tortellini Empire.
She was a much more suitable partner for him, so he gravitated towards her.
Yeah.
She was crazy about Billy, too. She wanted to marry him.
Oh, boy.
Anne became aware of the affair. Billy didn't try to hide it, but if she divorced him, it would take away everything she had clawed her way toward.
So he didn't even hide it
Nope.
because he knew. That
Her
sucks.
identity, her belonging as Mrs. Anne Woodward, she was feeling increasingly desperate.
Poor thing.
So Anne may have had reasons to pull the trigger, but she also had an innocent explanation. She had feared for her family's safety from a mysterious prowler. Now, the police had arrested a prowler months earlier. Had this man broken into Anne's house?
We don't know.
He was out on probation, so police track him down and question him, and he has an alibi.
Okay.
So at this point, things are looking pretty bad for Anne. She couldn't prove anything. All she could do was wait, locked away in her hospital room as if things seemed dark. They were about to get much darker with the arrival of the person who hated Anne the most.
Well, think about
Elsie.
this, too. She's locked away. She can't do anything. Her husband's cheating on her. There's no Netflix or Disney Plus.
I
She
know.
can't even watch the MCU.
So it had been a little over 3 weeks since Anne Woodward shot her husband, Billy.
Yeah.
The press was running wild with speculation, and until this point, the family had remained silent. But like it or not, a grand jury was about to make it public, and soon.
And you know, everywhere there's people running around with those fedoras with press sticking
Yes.
out of it.
That's right.
Say.
Elsie disliked Anne intensely and was quite sure she had killed Billy on purpose.
Yeah.
Elsie did not want her grandchildren to have a mother who murdered their father.
Well, nobody wants that.
That would have been
be
the ultimate
fair.
scandal, which is all the biggest. Of course, that's the most important thing.
That's all he cares about.
Yep.
What people think
Yep.
and if it's a scandal, not anything real.
So Elsie made a decision to send the boys to school in Switzerland.
Okay.
She played along with Anne's story to her face, like, okay, it was an accident, I got it. Like she would to
Yeah.
her face.
She pretended that she wasn't.
she pretended like
yeah.
she believed her.
Yeah.
She knew what a scandal could do, and she had a pretty good idea of the shadows that lurked in her son's marriage. She did send private detectives all over the place afterwards and
Yeah.
couldn't get anything on Anne, but she got an enormous amount of data about Billy. Anne and Billy's marriage was in shambles. Separation papers had been drawn up, but Billy hadn't signed them yet. However, far he strayed, he couldn't tear himself away from Anne completely, but he wouldn't love her anymore either.
Oh.
So they would go to parties, get loaded, and cause a scene all the time.
Really?
Yes. And they
But not-
argued constantly.
So, if they argued constantly and they would do this all the time,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been out of the ordinary for them to do it at this party the night he dies.
Right.
Right?
Right. And he'd smack her around sometimes.
Whoops. Shit. Sorry.
What's happening?
I'm trying to pull up my ad. Sorry. Go ahead. Yep.
He'd smack her around sometimes, and they would fight at costume party. It's in a German castle, big public scenes. It's well documented that they had these big scenes.
They were tumultuous and
He-
everybody knew. But the night before, the night of, they didn't? Nobody said that they were
Well, hold
fighting?
on.
Oh,
I'll get
okay,
there.
Okay.
So he made a point of keeping her off balance. He made a point of keeping her upset. And he was always withholding his appreciation of her.
Okay.
She was obsessed with keeping him. She knew that he would beat her up and slap her around, then end up having sex with her, and that's how she lived.
That's the only way she could get some action, huh?
Anne was really starting to fall apart, drinking and taking pills.
Yeah, that's
What
a
was
shitty
seen
existence.
in public was so bad that one could only imagine what was going on behind closed doors.
Poor thing.
Oh, I got. Hold
Got
on.
messed up?
Yeah, because it jumped around. Okay, in November 1955, Anne was sent before a grand jury. She gave testimony that she loved her husband and it was an accident because she thought he was the prowler that had been in their home before.
Yeah.
There was a surprise witness who came forward to say they knew what really happened.
Uh-oh, a surprise witness. I always love surprise witnesses.
From the beginning, Anne had stated that she had mistaken Billy for a prowler, but when police had caught the prowler, he denied he was there. And now it was his turn to tell the world what really happened that night. The prowler's first story was that he wasn't on the estate. Then he changed his story. He testified that night he climbed a tree and entered the home through a second-story window. While doing so, he knocked something over, which caused a crash.
Yeah.
This startled Mrs. Woodward awake.
Yeah.
As he was
So
descending
that really
the stairs...
was the prowler.
Yeah.
Okay.
As he was descending the stairs, he heard a shot, then another shot. Then he got out of there, jumped off the roof, and ran.
Wow.
Now, it was unclear if the prowler had changed his story because he was being honest or if it was because he made the whole thing up. There were whispers that Elsie had made it worth the young man's while to confess.
Oh, whoa, with a boob, a little side boob.
Anne was cleared very quickly,
Oh, wait, Elsie.
the mom.
Wait, she.
Because it's such a scandal, she wants it to go away.
Oh, she. Oh, okay. I was saying, I thought she wants her to be caught, but no, she
No.
doesn't. Okay, because it's a scandal. But even if. Here's where I'm a little confused. Like, even if the prowler wasn't there that day, it doesn't. She could still have thought he was a prowler, right?
Yeah, I thought we had a prowler the other night in our house, and
Right.
it was Henry
Right.
knocking on the
Well,
floor,
what
and I
I'm
about
saying-
jumped in your cousin's arms.
Yeah, he almost shot my cousin. But what I'm saying is, I mean, there's some they have to prove that. Well, if they don't have proof that the prowler was in there, but you could still know that there's been a prowler.
Well, the truth is, they had been talking about the prowler all night at the dinner party.
Yeah.
Then
So
they-
she was worried about it.
Then they got home and they were good and liquored, and they found a glass that wasn't there when they left. So they each got a gun and searched the house.
Okay, so they were actually both actively looking for him. Yeah,
Anne takes the rifle to bed with her, and Billy takes a gun to bed with him too. Remember, they
yeah,
have
separate
bedrooms.
beds. Yeah.
He apparently went to take a shower then. Then Anne couldn't sleep, so she takes all these pills.
Yeah.
And then she goes to bed. Then she hears the prowler fall in the upstairs curtains. At the same moment,
She's
she heard
hopped
the
up
noise
on
that Billy...
goofballs and
And they each rush into the darkened hall at opposite ends.
yeah, and she's hopped up on goofballs.
Then what happens next is anyone's guess. She was in an abusive relationship. It could have been a Freudian mistake.
Oh gosh, I
Anne
never
went
even thought about
into-
Freud.
A deep depression after the trial. She
She
went
did.
abroad and tried to make her way there. She was pretty much ostracized from her husband's world.
Yeah.
Several years later, when Truman Capote decided to write about the Woodwards, he gave Esquire magazine a chapter, and somebody, friend or enemy, sent Anne an advanced copy. She was devastated. He really depicted Anne as a gold-digging whore.
Oh,
She had no
geez.
future once the story's published. What had happened before was mild compared to what will come. She has the date that the story is supposed to come out marked in her date book. The night before, Anne wrote her last words on a notepad by her bed, took too many pills, and died by suicide.
Oh.
Anne wanted to be famous, to be rich, to be in high society. She got all of that and ended up being destroyed by it.
That's it. That's what they say. Careful what you wish for. If you want fame and
That's right.
money, it comes with a price. It comes with a price.
That's right, baby. And that's the story of Anne and Billy Woodward,
Wow.
the murder or the death of Billy
Makes me
Woodward.
not want to be rich and famous. I just want to be anonymous and watch Disney Plus and Netflix all day and get hopped up on goofballs.
Well, the fact that there was a prowler in their house, you know,
yeah, I mean there had been
you got firearms.
even if he wasn't there that
Yeah.
day, even if he had been, it
Yeah.
would make sense why she would
be
be
scared.
jumpy, especially if she's hopped up on goofballs.
Yeah,
Right?
Right.
She was hopped up on goofballs.
big time.
Will you say hopped up on
Big
goofballs?
goofballs.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. That was really good. That was very well told. I like the jumping around a little bit.
Okay.
I kind of like the filling in bits by bits. So that's kind of fun. Fun little storytelling
Fun little rehash of a television program.
tactic. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Thank you everyone for listening.
Yes.
We are. I don't know how to say this other than just to say we are in love with you people.
Yes.
You people that listen, we love you.
Thank you for listening.
We care about you. We would brush your hair if we saw you.
We would braid your pubes.
On the street. Yeah, we would braid your pubes if you have them.
If you don't, no judgment.
And if you're open to that, but not if we won't do it against your will.
No.
Right? Never braid someone's pubes.
No,
against
of
their
course
will.
not.
So thanks for listening. Shout out to Sebastian from Magic Mind. He's a good pal. Anyway, we love you guys and keep
It's time
listening.
to get
and
outta
rate,
here, Chuck
review,
Berry.
subscribe. Chuck Berry, get out of here. Hit it, Matt Truman Ego Trip, the very greatest band in the world. Check out Matt Truman Ego Trip for live dates. Check out their website. They played the Village Idiot in Maumee, Ohio a lot. They're awesome. That place is a great place. Like good pizza.
Baby, where you get them chains? You about to bust 'em all out at the seams. Well, I can tell you like to keep it clean, but you ain't all about the ways and means. One of these days the kid's gonna kick you where it counts and then put you do it now. Hey!
Matt Truman Ego Trip is the greatest band of all time. Buy their music.